It is my pleasure to share with you this very pertinent topic on agility at workplace. Now, before I start, just a quick survey. You will notice a pop-up coming up on your screen any moment now. Can you just complete just two questions just to gauge where you stand at the moment so that I can pitch my explanations appropriately? Okay. All right, I see the responses coming up. All right, I gather most of you have completed your poll, and I'm going to close it and share for the benefit of all. All right. Right. It's nice to know that we have a mixed group here. Some of you have rated yourself as intermediate, most beginners. And interestingly, there are many of you who have reported that your organization has adopted some agile practices. So that's nice to know. All right. So thank you for that. And that sets us very nicely for the session that's coming up. So, yes, I've been introduced. Just a quick one. As an agile consultant, trainer, and coach over 12 years, we've explored the subject of agile transformation at some detail. And I've had the pleasure to work with a multitude of companies, MNCs, local, and various industry verticals. And today, this presentation that you're about to hear now has come from a multitude of sources, Essentia, namely Harvard Business Review, Korn Ferry, PMI USA, and Gallup, and my very own work with Agile Consultancy as well. Now, what are we going to talk about today? What are we going to discuss? We will start by giving all of you a little bit of overview of Agile, given that most of you have reported that you have, or rather you're a beginner. We will understand the current state problems that is facing us today and what exactly is agility at workplace. We will look at the future of work that's coming up very strongly. These two very interesting terms that I like a lot, Omni-connected and Productivity Anywhere. We will look at challenges implementing agility at workplace in organizations, and it's nice to know that. And what are the facets of agility? And we will deep dive into four of them in this talk. And we also have this post-event training, which we will talk after at the end. And of course, a fun quiz that's coming up. Yes, so let's start very quickly into an overview of Agile. Now, how do you define this whole thing called agility at workplace? Well, it refers to, in a nutshell, an organization's ability to adapt quickly to changes in its environment, market conditions, customer needs, and internal dynamics. And that's a whole lot of things going on there, a whole lot of areas that to talk about. But let's get into a bit more specific areas now. Why even talk about Agile? Why even talk about this subject? Now, some of you have heard of this word VUCA, and it's not a new word. Volatility that we know about, it's all about the rate of change, right? Changes are so often rapid. Uncertainty being the U, unclear about what to do now. We also have complexity that is inundating us, multiple factors that we need to make decisions now. And of course, things are getting more ambiguous than it has ever been in the past, the lack of clarity. So I would like you to type on the chat right now, is VUCA true for you and where you are? Is VUCA true for what you do and where you are? I mean, if you experience just V, then just put a V on the chat. If it's just U or just C or just A or all VUCA, just insert that on the chat if you don't mind. I'm going first. VUCA is for me, that's for sure. What about the rest? Okay. Well, you don't have to say VUCK. Maybe it's just V for you or U for that matter, right? Okay, more responses coming up. Yep, yep, VUCA. Nice, I like that order of it. Um, Justin, you put ACUV. I reckon that is A being the most for you, right? That's the order. UNC, interesting. Conrosmita, yes. VU, excellent. UNC, great. So, yes, I think we can go on and on talking about this. But the fact of the matter is that we are inundated by these things. There's a question from the chat. How is U different from A? Now, interesting. Uncertainty is to do with connecting the dots, right? Not knowing what to do now, whereas ambiguity is just a lack of clarity. So one is more of understanding, one is just the level of detail. So A is the level of detail, it's the lack of clarity. Is that all right, Tariq? So on that note, feel free to post any questions on the chat at any point. I'm really okay to be disrupted. Remember, we are in an agile walk, and that's part and parcel of what we do, right?
Yeah,
Excellent.
thanks, man.
All right, you're welcome there. So let's move on and look at what is the current state right now. Why are we even talking about this whole subject of agility at workplace? Why not just talk about agile project management? Why are we talking about agility at workplace? And now there's two arguments that I want to put forth to you. At the moment, we see that agile practices are not new. Yes, we know about it, but it's used mainly in projects. And therefore, the benefits are only for selected teams. And that's quite unfortunate, right? Because something so good should be shared across. So, therefore, the second point makes more sense. Agile practices are not embraced organization wide, which is sad because if you want a company to be agile, then you've got to have more teams than just project teams, right? To adopt agility. And that is why you find agility at workplace cannot be achieved because it's not permeated across the organization. It's only for the selected people in the project teams. And that's what we want to try and break free, right? If you want to ever have agility at workplace. Right. Just a quick check. Am I okay so far? Am I going okay? Is it too fast for you? Can I just have a check on the chat? It's part of my reflection as well to see if I'm okay. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you for being a very, very participative audience. Nice. All right. Let's move on swiftly to understand the third part. Agility at workplace. Let's understand this whole subject a bit more. What does the statistics show us? Companies with agile executives, meaning people who are well versed in agile, can achieve as much as 25% higher profit margins than their peer companies. And that's a huge number, if you ask me. That in itself, it's a very good business case for us to even be doing agile and adopting agility at workplace. So if that is the case, now what is stopping us? Now, there's one big word that you must have noticed now in this slide is this word culture. It is dictated by culture. If you want agility, then we need to look at the culture. So, is your culture customer focused and responsive? Or is your organization's culture driven by bureaucracy and excessive processes rather than responding quickly and effectively to customer needs? Now, this is a big question, right? A big question. Now, I just want you to reflect on this. It's no need to answer this now because it might take the whole day, but just reflect on this word culture and agility. So, what's happening is on the ground when we look at more and more survey outcomes, most companies really want to be agile. They want to, but unfortunately, they don't have the culture to support it. That's the sad truth, right? Wanting is one thing, but the culture is not there. So, leaders, on the other hand, who want agile, they need an agile employee environment, not just agile for project teams. So changing workplace culture is needed in most companies if we really want to adopt these things organization wide. That's what the survey tells us. So let's understand what's happening globally. What's the traction globally? What we call as the future of work. That's something I like to share with all of you. And this very interesting word called omni-connected. Now, what is omni-connected experience? It's not really saying that you must be 24/7 on your mobile phone, always respond to messages on work. That's not quite true. In fact, it's the opposite. Now, what I'm going to do now is to share a short video. It's about 4 minutes. And hopefully this video will give you an account of what is omni-connected.
Feeling connected.
I hope
Being
the volume is
included.
coming all right.
Knowing we belong.
This is Omni-connected. It's about ensuring everyone has equal quality of experience,
No matter where they work.
And every voice is heard.
True Omni-connected experiences comes down to us.
And our behaviors.
And the technology we use.
Together we foster environments where we build a sense of community in our teams.
Where we look out for each other.
And take the time to care deeply for each other.
Where we understand the flexibility we all need in our work and lives to support our individual well-being and productivity.
Because when we all feel seen, safe, and connected,
Regardless of our physical locations.
We are empowered to speak up.
And have the courage to voice our needs.
As well as our ideas.
Omni-connected doesn't mean being connected all the time.
It's about being connected in smarter ways.
and knowing when it's time to disconnect too.
Through Omni-connected experiences,
We will evolve and grow together.
for a new and better way of working.
Let there be change.
So this video we just saw talks about this idea of being omni-connected. And interestingly, the research tells us that omni-connected employees are more likely to stay in the company as much as 59% compared to companies that do not embrace this idea as much. Nice. And the good thing is, omni-connected employees in an organization stand to gain a ripple effect of 5% revenue growth on the part of the company. That itself is a good business case. So what are we talking about? So in essence, if I were to summarize that video you just heard, employees are increasingly looking at their employer to meet or help meet their individual, relational, and purposeful needs. Let's just decipher these three words: individual, relational, and purposeful needs. So it's like a triangle, if you like, right? The me needs, that's the individual needs, right? The physical, financial, employable, emotional needs. And you've got the collective we needs, the purpose. Now, what am I doing in the company? What I'm here for? A sense of purpose. And the connectedness between people, between peers, and that's the relational needs, right? Gone are the days we just come and go and do what we do and we go back, and that's just passive compliance. And here I'm talking about omni-connectedness. And that's the idea that I'm going to talk about now. And moving on very closely is the idea of productivity anywhere. It's again under the realm of future work. So what is productivity anywhere? In essence, it means people can work anywhere and they're better off doing what they want to do anywhere because they know their setting and their comfort needs. Now, well, there's one school of thought that says, well, yes, we should be having hybrid work. And research has shown, this is post-pandemic, by the way, most people want hybrid work and flexible arrangements to thrive and be happy at work. But let me just tell you, Productivity anywhere is not merely just about hybrid work. You can have hybrid work, you can have people working anywhere they want, and yet they may not be as productive as they would be in the office. So they keep going back to the office. So productivity anywhere means not just having someone move away from where they are usually, but also having the setting, the systems, the processes in place to do what they want and what they can do effectively anywhere, anytime. So that is in the essence of what productivity anywhere is. And the stats is just amazing, right? 63% of growth organizations have enabled workforce when they adopt productivity anywhere. And the other side, you see organizations having negative or no growth companies have somewhat overlooked this aspect. So let us put these two things together: future of work, omni-connected, future of work, productivity anywhere. There's a whopping 7.4% of revenue boost a year. And this is what the survey tells us. That's quite staggering amount, if you ask me. Now, I'm just going to throw this question back to you. What do you think? And if you can just quickly type on the chat, the future of work. Do you think omni-connected and productivity anywhere is a worthy ideal? Or is it worth talking about or discussing in where you are? Type in the chat. You could say just yes, maybe, or no if you disagree. Anything is fine. All responses are good responses, absolutely. All right, lovely. So we got, yeah, good, maybe. Okay, most of you have said what you've said. Thank you for those responses on the chat. Well, just hang in there with that thought, and let's move on to the next bit of what we're going to talk about. Now, things are always not as rosy as they are, right? I mean, yes, we know agility at workplace is important. It's interesting. We want to have all this omni-connectedness and we want productivity anywhere. But there are going to be some challenges when we initially do these sort of things. And these challenges I've seen from my own personal experience doing work, consulting, training, coaching, and also from survey findings that I've shared earlier on. So what are those challenges that we're going to talk about? There are 5 challenges, and it's interesting, and I would like you to just reflect on whether these challenges are actually true for you. As I'm going through the 5 challenges, please reflect if these challenges are true or relevant in where you are and what you do, all right? And that way you can resonate towards what I'm saying. The first challenge: most organizations are focused on attracting new talent, but often not helping existing employees feel a sense of purpose. Meaning, they're getting new talent, but leaving out the existing ones behind, not nurturing them as much as they should. So, what can we do about this? I mean, in short, simplest of answers would be leaders can make purpose felt more pronouncedly as part of culture, embedded in your recruitment, in your town hall meetings, in your engagement meetings. And it's important to also understand 9 out of 10 times your employee is also your customer. A huge statement, right? Research says 9 out of 10 times your employee is also your customer. Interesting. The second challenge, again, reflect on this again. Leaders adopting a command and control approach and the lack of work autonomy have resulted in passive compliance and the lack of accountability. What is passive compliance? I mean, we just come to work, we're paid a salary, we just do what we do and we go back, right? That's just it, nothing more. So what's happening here? When leaders shed or drop their command and control approach and start to lead with intent and purpose, giving people autonomy, now you see a change, right? Unfortunately, the statistics say that 53% of CEOs still look at excessively on productivity, seriously compromising on people's well-being. Of course, I'm saying work has to get done, but there's always a balance, right? It's a question of balance. So tipping the balance can affect productivity on the other hand, right? Challenge number three. Challenge number three in implementing agility at workplace. Organizations have invested so much in on-site improvements, getting what we need them to do at their premise, rather than resources that help employees be productive anywhere. More and more findings globally are showing there's a tilt towards the intention of employees being able or wanting to be productive anywhere. But a lot of investments and resources are being put towards work on-site improvement. So you see a mismatch here, right? So what we're saying is better work experiences rely on omni-connected cultures, where people are connected, feel, belong, regardless of their physical location. As you've seen in the statistics earlier, if you remember, this alone has account for 59% of someone's intention to stay in the company, right? So it's really worth looking at this seriously. The fourth challenge, digital skills have decreased, especially among key workforce groups. This is one serious challenge now in the age of technology advancement. So what we need to do is to build digital fluency that contributes to innovation and better customer experience. And people need ongoing training. They need tools at the center of how they work and connect. And guess what the statistics say? 31% of employees are not confident that they can be relevant in the next 5 years. That's interesting. And a huge number of them who are not certain that their skills are applicable in the next 5 years. And that's a cause for concern. The last challenge, not last but not least, I would say, leaders in the name of agility change direction so frequently. You know, they use the word agility in the wrong way sometimes. And people become so confused, because they just keep changing their direction so often, so fast, and they're so confused. That brings about inefficiency and impeding progress. And I've personally seen this. People have told me that, guess what? So not, I'm very agile, I keep telling them what to do every time, but they cannot be. But, that's not very clever, right? Because if you keep changing the goalpost all the time, how are people able to see what they're going to do and feel what they're going to do is going to contribute further? So please differentiate the journey and the destination. So leaders should be able to articulate the destination. That remains constant, but the journey might differ, right? That has to be clearly communicated to every employee. This is so important. Well, let's digest all these 5 things, and I've got a poll coming up. You can please pull up your mobile phone, and if you can scan this QR code, it'll take you to a poll. And I would like you to insert your response. You can select one or more answers, actually. The question is basically asking you, which of those 5 challenges that I've shared, which of those are relevant to you? That's the question. So there are 5 different challenges there, and you can tick more than one response. Okay, we've got some responses coming up. Let's wait for more to share your thoughts. Okay, 10 responses so far. We'll give everyone another 1 or 2 minutes. If you're unable to scan, you can alternatively go to the link menti.com on your mobile device and key you see on your screen. That will also allow you to get into the poll. Okay, we've got a fair distribution of responses. Okay. All right, so I've gathered most of you have responded. And it's interesting to note here, if you were to analyze this, I thought initially the first one in blue had no response. Now the blue has got the most response. Interesting. The second and third, it's the second especially is not surprising. All right. Thank you. Thank you for your response. And that's a fair share of responses coming from everyone. All right. We've got the first one overtook all the rest. Interesting. How true. All right. Thank you again. And I guess most of you have given your views quite clearly. And let me move on now to understand the heart of what we're talking today. Let's get to the heart of it. So what are the facets of agility? When we talk about agility of workplace, what are we really talking about? This is really the heart of today's session that I want to talk about. So in short, there are 8 facets of agility, 8 aspects, if you like, 8 aspects of agility. But before I move on, just want to ask if there are any questions so far, any observation, any clarification that you would like from me at any point. Feel free to insert that on the chat as I'm monitoring the chat very closely. All right, there are none, then I'll move on. So let's look at the 8 facets of agility. First being operational agility. Operational agility involves designing and implementing agile practices and adapting to adaptable workflows and procedures. Emotional agility is the ability to navigate one's emotion effectively and adapt to changing emotional situations. Now, this is so important because remember, agility is not a norm in most organizations. Embedding agility without looking at the emotional side may bring about negative consequences. So it's one aspect that we should also be looking at. Learning agility is the willingness and ability of people and teams to acquire new expertise quickly and apply it in different contexts. Team agility is the capacity of teams to self-organize and self-direct to achieve their goals perpetually. Leadership agility is the ability of leaders and managers to inspire, motivate, and guide their teams through times of change and uncertainty. Technology agility involves leveraging technology to enable rapid innovation, automation, and optimization of processes and workflows. And lastly, second last, in fact, organization agility is the ability of an organization to quickly adapt to changes on a strategy level in the market dynamics and technology advancement. So the difference between the first operational, that's getting work done, the organizational agility is more on the strategy level. We're agile in terms of the strategy we have. And the last one, cultural agility. We talked about this earlier on, right? In the presentation, involves the ability of an organization to embrace diversity, inclusion, cultural differences, both internally among employees and externally with customers and that's in short. Now, given the time we have, we're going to focus on the first four. The first four: operational agility, emotional agility, learning agility, and team agility. And the reason why I'm focusing on the first four is because I consider them the low-hanging fruits, right? It's a lot difficult to handle the other four because that takes a little bit more time, space, resources, effort, and so on. So now let's look at each one of these facets, each one of them. Let's start to deep dive and look at each one of these four facets. The first being operational agility. Like I've said earlier, it involves designing, implementing agile best practices and adaptable workflows and procedures. And what are we doing it for? Operational agility provides executives with practical guide to accelerate innovation and learning. And what are we trying to achieve here really? There are just four things under operational agility. And let's walk through with you one by one. The very first thing that we can do under operational agility is just learn how agile really works. Now, from my personal experience, 7 out of 10 companies I've consulted and worked with are not using agile appropriately. They claim they are, but they are not. And the worst thing is when things don't work out for them, they blame, you know what, agile is not working. It's useless. But they're not even doing it properly. That's number one. Number two, understand where agile does or does not work. Remember, agile is not a quick fix to all your company problems. To be effective, seek assistance from agile consultants or practitioners. Number three, start small and let the word spread. Please remember, agile adoption has to be treated as a change management initiative. People are not familiar with agile. Going big bang will not work. There will be a lot of resistance. So what I would suggest, and I've always suggested this to teams, start small and then spread your success stories. Always start small. And last but not least, to implement operational agility, allow teams to customize their practices, not immediately, over time. So you allow experienced practitioners or consultants to help you amend or adopt new practices to enhance agility at your workplace. All right, so that is the first quadrant, operational agility. Let's move on to the second one, emotional agility, facet number 2. We'll be doing a short experiment here in a while on this aspect of emotional agility. In short, it's the ability to navigate and manage one's emotion effectively and adapt to changing emotional situations. It's wrong to say Do not get emotional. We hear these people saying all the time, right? And I'll tell these people that you can never not get emotional. We are human beings. It's normal to feel emotional. But what are we saying here is the ability to navigate and manage your own thoughts and feelings. That is important. Not to say not have any negative emotion. That's never going to happen, right? But it's to navigate, to manage your thoughts and feelings. That is essential to success. So, what's the big deal? Why are we talking about this? Because whether you like it or not, we are emotional beings, right? If you don't like the word, I'm sorry, that's just very true. Because emotion can be both negative and positive, right? We always associate emotion to a negative feeling, but in fact, emotion can also be very productive. So, managing emotion can help people elevate stress, reduce errors, more innovative, and improve job performance. Now, this is so important, right? In a fast changing economy, we have to be able to do this. We have absolutely no choice because emotions are going to come whether we like it or not. So we just have to know how to manage it. So I'm going to just attempt to do a very simple experiment now. I call it the emotional agility experiment. This was popularized by this Harvard professor, Daniel Wegner. Of course, he's no longer around today. He passed away. Now, his experiment is quite simple, but I'm just going to make it a bit simplified for today's session. Are you ready for this experiment? Can I just have a okay or yes on the chat? Are you ready for this little experiment? All right. All right, we're ready. Okay, good. Let's do a simple emotional agility experiment, yeah? Now, before that, I'm going to divide this group into two groups. Okay, so I'm just going to go by the name in the participant list. So if your names are from A to H, okay? If your names are between A to H, you are in the control group, the first group. And if your names are after that, you mean I to Z or Z, then you are in group two. Okay, I repeat, we have two groups here. Group one, the control group. Your names start from the letter A from I, the letter I, group one. Group two, your names start from J to H, right? Are you clear? What group are you in? Okay, so far? All right. So my question is this, okay? Or rather, not so much a question. You have to visualize. For the first group, you are supposed to think of your favorite ice cream. Favorite ice cream. Okay, that's the job of group one. I'm going to do a countdown timer for 1 minute. Okay, coming up. Don't start first. Huh? 1 minute, you're supposed to think of your favorite ice cream. Two, the ones from your names are J to Z or Z, you are not supposed to think of your favorite ice cream. Okay, so that's group two, right? So you're clear? Group one, you're supposed to think. Group two, you're not supposed to think of your favorite ice cream. All right, I'm going to run down the timer here. When the timer start, you must do what I tell you. Group one, only think. Group two, don't think. Okay, you all ready? Right, we're going to start now. Okay, time's up. So it'll be nice to do this on a face-to-face setting, but according to the experiment that Professor Daniel Wegner conducted, he said for the first group, the ones who were supposed to think of their favorite ice cream, thought lesser about their favorite ice cream compared to group two, who were not supposed to think of the favorite ice cream. They thought more about their favorite ice cream. So, of course, this example which we are using today is about ice cream. It is maybe a not very good example, but if you have situations that I heard someone saying, they're thinking of chocolate cake. Yeah, that's true. You like chocolate cake. Well, you're in group two, right? So you're thinking more of it. Nice. You got a photo there as well. I know lunch is coming, but thinking of cake now. All right. So you see, the thing is this, right? When we have any emotional disturbances, right? To say that we're not going to think of the problem is not going to be true because you are going to think about it. It's like someone saying, don't be angry lah. The more you become angry, right? Because you're already angry. When someone tells you don't become angry, the more you become angry. So the idea is not to resist that emotion, according to Professor Daniel Wegner, but to manage that feeling, to manage the sentiment. Okay, of course, he has written a whole paper and work on this space that I'm not trying to simplify, but that is the essence of what he's saying. So, in other words, what he is trying to say is, Professor Douglas Wegner, he said, ample research shows that attempting to minimize or ignore your thoughts, like I said, don't think of your ice cream, you're suppressing it, right? You're ignoring it. It doesn't work. It'll only amplify them. You want to think more of it. So never try to suppress your emotion because it doesn't work. It just goes against the nature of how thoughts work. So what are we saying really? What are we saying? We're saying effective leaders do not try to suppress their inner emotions. What they do is they approach them in a mindful, value-driven, productive way in the process, developing what we call as emotional agility. But remember, this is not something that happens overnight, right? It can be trained, it can be learned, and we'll talk to you about this at the end of the session, and MC will discuss this in the post session as well. But that's the idea, right? That's the idea. You got the idea, you got the understanding of it. That's what we are saying. All right, so can we move on to the third facet of agility? So we just covered organization, agility. Sorry, we just covered operational agility. We just covered emotional agility. And let's move to the third one, learning agility. What is this? It's the ability or willingness of people to acquire new expertise quickly and apply it in different contexts. This is the willingness and ability, two things, right? Because sometimes you have the ability, but you don't have the willingness. Sometimes you are willing to do it, but you don't have the ability, right? So you need both coming together. So what does the research tell us? Well, percentage of agile learners are typically around 15% or lesser in organizations. But it is these 15% that are 18 times more likely to be high potential compared to the ones who are not. So can you imagine this 15%, 18 times more effective? Can you imagine if we increase this pie to 20, 25, 30? Just imagine the level of productivity. Enormous, right? Absolutely. So what can we do about this? How can we basically, talk about this and get it really done on an actual level? So the three things we can do. Number one is navigating newness. Here it means people can undertake complex work with little or no guidance. Or people can also handle situations with no previous experience. You hear people saying, I can't do this because I have no experience. It's so common, right? We hear this all the time because you will never have that experience when you do something new. You will never ever have that experience, but you have to navigate newness. You just do it, even though you don't have experience. But the ability to learn swiftly on the ground, that's what we're talking about, right? That's navigating newness. Number two, understanding others. Two things here. Number one, we empathize on different perspective and we anticipate different perspective. In fact, in Agile, we have what we call as healthy conflict. When there's a disagreement, we should embrace it because it brings about different viewpoints. Unfortunately, in our culture, sometimes we don't express ourselves, right? When someone senior tells us something, we just listen, we adopt, we say yes, but that's not going to help. That's not going to help. But of course, I always say it respectfully, right? You can always say what you want, but say it respectfully. And thirdly, self-awareness, right? And so simple, right? This idea is that saying I don't know is a sign of confidence. It's a sign of maturity. Just say I don't know. I need to pick out further. I need to understand this a bit more. Reflect and improve. And interestingly, the word proactively curious. Proactively curious. Just being curious. That itself is a great spirit, a great quality. And last facet we talk about today, and we're coming closer to the end of the presentation today, is the aspect of team agility. Now remember, Agile is about teamwork, and it's the ability of teams to self-organize and self-direct. Two different words here. You self-organize, you organize yourselves. You self-direct, you make decisions as a team to achieve goals perpetually. Now, there's a particular sequence for this. Now, number one, teams must be able to self-organize, right? They must be able to autonomously organize themselves, their responsibilities, and so on, without much explicit direction, without being told. Then you've got the second quadrant, self-directed. They are empowered to manage their tasks, their goals, their decision making independently. And only when you have this first two can you have empowered teams. You cannot have empowered teams if you do not have self-organizing and self-directed teams. And empowered teams, as you can imagine, they're groups of authority to make decisions as a group. They're highly collaborative, they're accountable, they're innovative. And the last, which is the dream of every organization to have, is what we call as high performance team. High performance teams are highly agile. They constantly, perpetually excel and exceed expectations. They innovate, they collaborate, they achieve their goal efficiently, and so on and so forth. That's what organizations aspire to be, right? And of course, there's much more to this, and there are a lot of things that goes behind each of these stages that's beyond our scope of today's presentation today. But suffice to say that this is what we aspire to be. So in short, to summarize, we are looking at, in fact, we just looked at actually operational agility, we looked at emotional agility, we looked at learning agility, and we looked at team agility. Operational, looking at implementing agile best practices. Emotional, looking at ability to manage one's emotions effectively. Learning agility, looking at the ability of individuals to and teams to acquire new expertise quickly, and team agility, capacity for them to self-organize and self-direct. Now, putting all of this into context, I would like you to help me with this once again. This is the last poll for the day. If you can again swipe your mobile device and scan this device, the question is, how do you rate the impact of the following four aspects of agility in your organization? Do you think which one is, if you did, or if you worked on, you will achieve a lot of change in agility? Which one is your pain point? Which ones are your pain points? I would like you to put the scale. Okay, we've got our first response coming up. This is just your perspective, yeah? We're not going to share any of these to anywhere, but your perspective of what you think, where things are at the moment. Okay, more responses slowly coming in. We'll give all of you another 2 minutes, maybe. Of course, to me, all quadrants are important. You may know specifically in where you are. There are certain areas that needs a bit more attention. Okay, I see that most of you have responded. We'll give another 30 seconds, maybe, for those who have just scanned the poll. Most of you have reported operational agility as an aspect that needs a lot of attention, followed by team agility, learning, and then emotional agility. It's interesting. Okay. All right. On that note, I would want to summarize what we have covered today. Thank you for your responses. So in short, what we just looked at, we looked at the understanding of agile, what's the problem statement. If you recall, I mentioned that a lot of work in agile spaces has happened only in selected teams, in project teams. Now it's time for operational non-project teams to also adopt agility if we want this to be an enterprise-wide initiative. And that has to happen if the organization itself needs to be agile. It cannot just be a selected few. Of course, we looked at agility workplace overview, the definition, the future of work, omni-connected, productivity anywhere. We understood this difference between these two, and the challenges, the 5 challenges, and we also looked at the 4 areas of agility, namely operational, learning, emotional, and team agility, right? So on that note, I end my presentation, and I would like to hand over the session to the organizer. Over to you, Kwanzawi.
Thank you, Dr. Sana, for a very interesting and lively presentation. I've noticed other question in the chat box. How can I practice in pool? What is that's
I think
that
what he
was
meant was the poll.
poll?
Yeah, so I've told him to scan, and I think he has done it.
Oh, okay, all right. So, if anybody has any questions, that you can either write in the chat box ataupun shout out here.
Yes, feel free.
Sorry.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, I have a question. In terms of emotional agility,
Yeah.
how do you learn it? How does an organization even begin to learn it, or can you unlearn it, or how do you go about doing that? Because I think emotional agility is something that's very, very important, not only at workplace but as in everywhere that we go.
Yes.
Especially, you did mention to handle or manage healthy conflicts.
Yeah, that's right. Now, you got a very good point, and I definitely think that's something that we all should be learning. However, you know, emotional agility is not something that we can learn from a textbook, or even if we attend a presentation. Yes, we need to be aware. The first step of anything is to be aware. To be aware that I have these emotions that's coming around me and is affecting me in one or more ways. That's the first step. To be able to recognize that emotion itself, to me, that's already a great first step, because a lot of times we do not do that, right? And that's why we meet accidents. When I say accidents, we get into conflict, we get into arguments, mood swings. When you come back home, our family get affected because they see us as parents, we're not in the right spirit of things, they don't talk to us. So it affects us in one or more ways, and beyond just work as we know it. So it's so important that we be aware, and that's where the training helps. But beyond that, right, is the practice, being consciously practicing this in my day-to-day environment. That when I start to get this turbulence inside, like a tsunami of feelings, emotions, what am I going to do about it? Because this tsunami, if it's not managed, it can go and affect others around me. So how am I managing it? So that's where the training will also give us a bit of insights on how to do that. But the real learning to me happens on the ground when you're faced with these actual situations.
Okay, and I understand, especially in a very hierarchical organization, very structured organization, handling that is something that's very uh, not easy. Yeah, it's a task, and it's a top-down approach. It's very, very difficult to break from there.
Absolutely.
Probably, yeah, because coming from used to be such an organization, and I think to break away is something that's a big task, yeah, for us to do that. Anybody else
Absolutely.
has any question? Ada? No question? Semua sudah tara already.
I think they're waiting for the last session. That we got the fun quiz with the prizes.
Yeah. All right. Okay. If there's no other question, I see people. Okay. So far, so good. Okay. If there's no other question, I hope today's presentation, what Dr. Sanath has shared with you, has intrigued you to discover more about agility at the workplace. So, just for your information, Mak Ma will and in consultancy with in collaboration with Agile Consultancy, will be organizing a post-event training for those who are interested in to do more in terms of how agility works in your workplace and how we can implement it, and how we can even start about agility. So that training will be done somewhere. We have not got a date yet, but it is going to be done somewhere after Hari Raya, if I'm not mistaken. Sana, can I pass to you
Yes.
to share the information?
Yes, that's absolutely true. Now remember, our learning journey doesn't stop here, because what we have done today is to give you that awareness, right? The high level awareness of what's coming up. And in collaboration with Ma, we wanted this to be a continuous engagement. And there's nothing like doing a proper, full-fledged, face-to-face, on-site exploration of these ideas. There's a lot that you can learn. There's a lot that we can share. There's a lot that you can also take back home. And I'm sure as much as you have learned today, there's much, much more that can be learned. So what we're doing is we're going to talk to you and share with you what's coming up after Raya. This is the 3 days immersive training. And we're going to talk and deep dive very deeply into these areas we talked about: emotional agility, operational agility, learning, team, and we added one more, in fact. So I've only covered 4 today, but that's even on the tip of the iceberg. We have not even gone down further. But in the training, you will go into these areas, the 5 areas, very deeply, very profoundly. And we're also going to talk about leadership agility in a very great depth. And If this is going to be done in-house, we're also throwing a complimentary one on-site advisory coaching session. If it's an on-site, meaning if you are doing it within your respective companies, then we will also follow the training with another visit to provide you additional help and support. This is one above what we are doing for the 3 days. So, of course, we'll also deep dive on the 5 challenges. How can we practically address these challenges as well? So we'll go into that space as well. All right. Any questions on the post-training before
But before that, I think you see in the chat box, there is a question by Harun Jabbar. How to make Agile effective when it's not adopted enterprise-wide?
Yeah, that's really a very good question coming from Mr. Harun here. Well, to me, any change has to start from the top, right? That's why this training we propose and we talked about leadership agility, which I have not talked about in this session. Nothing quite happens if leaders themselves are not agile, right? So to me, any enterprise-wide initiative has to begin with leaders first. That's number one. Number two, if leaders are aware of agility, they're aware of the merits and the benefits of it, then we can now start to institutionalize this on small pockets of teams. Remember I mentioned in one of my sessions, start small. So you can now start small. You can have a pilot group. This pilot group will be trained, be provided the support and mentor, and they will become the change agents to spread the good word enterprise-wide. So to sum up my point in the question Mr. Harun asked is, start with having it with the core group, the leaders, and then start to implement it with small teams. And these teams will then slowly spread into other teams, and slowly and surely it will be enterprise-wide. That's the long and short answer of it.
Okay, thank you.
Is it okay, Mr. Harun? Is there any other views that you have? Feel free to share as well.
Okay, in the meantime, while if there are any questions, there's a question on whether we can have recording session. Yes, the recording session will be made available to all registered attendees. So please fill up your e-attendance so that we can share the recordings respectively according to all your emails. Yeah, and also for this post-event training, we'll also make inform the members here, those who attended, whether we provide more brochures and more details. And as and when we have confirmed dates available, we'll provide to you and probably invite yourself and your organization if you would like to participate in this post-training event. Yeah. Okay. Any other question before we go on to the last highlight of the year of the events? Of the year. Okay. If there's no other further question, but should you have any other question after this, feel free to also write me in the chat box. Yeah. So can I pass over to Dr. Sana for the pop quiz today?
Yes. So we are now heading to the last session of the day, and that is our fun quiz, and we have gifts for top 5 winners. Now for this, you mobile device, and we are going to go to your mobile device, browser on your mobile device, and type kahoot.it. I put that on the chat. So I'm going to share the screen. So if you're going to your mobile device, you're going to key in that link, kahoot.it, and you'll be asked to key in that pin that's on the screen as well. 3841159. Now, for those of you who have not played this game, I will just share the rules of the game. The points will be derived based on two things. One is the correctness of your answer, and number two, how fast your response is. The faster and correct answers will get more points. Okay, this is a fun quiz, we call it, because we want you to have fun as well as to revise what we have discussed today. There are only 5 questions actually. That's only 5 questions. Those of you here to rename your name to your name so that we can identify the winners based on your name. I think some of your names you'll have difficulty to figure out who it is. Rasmita, very clear, one. You got Mama. Who is Mama here?
Mama is short for Mama Amin.
Okay. As long you know lah. As long our secretariat knows who they are, I'm okay.
Interesting.
TN is Tiani. I think she also one of the registered person.
Yeah.
We had Mr. Harun here and then lost him for a bit. YS. Who is YS?
That you me.
Okay. Alright, fine. Okay, Harun is back. Alright, so I gather that there's no other people entering the game. Okay, so our odds are higher now to get the prizes. We have 15 people and we have 5 prizes. Okay, good. Higher chances now. Okay, can we start? Alright, let's do it. Multi-select more than one answers. Okay, so VUCA is all lah kan? Volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. So all answer is correct for all, right? Okay. Question 2. Also multi-select, more than one answer. So at the moment, if you notice the problem statement, the current situation, agility at workplace is limited only to project teams, right? And non-project teams like operational teams are not really adopting it as much as they should be. It's the problem we have right now. Also an opportunity, if you ask me, to introduce these things to project teams so that the entire organization can now become more agile, right? So most of you have got that right, except for a few. Okay, new leaders. Third question, also multi-select, more than one answers. Double points. So except for orange, the orange is the other way around, right? The blue is opposite. Because by just having hybrid work, if some employer staff, okay, you can go to your home and do all your work. But the thing is, he cannot do it. Certain things he cannot access. He cannot that sort of work done at really able to do productivity anywhere, right? So it's not just about hybrid. It's all about the systems and processes and policies that must come in as well. Of course, Omni-connected employees and productivity anywhere drives 74% of growth, actually, according to the survey. Okay. This one is also multi-select and double bonus. Okay, so if you remember what I mentioned, a high performance team, they are empowered, but not the other way around. And yes, self-organized and self-directed are empowered. Yes. So it's only the blue and the red. The green is the opposite, which is wrong. The orange is the opposite, which is wrong. Okay, last question. Also multi-select and double points. So yes, as most of you put the blue, it's so true, right? Any form of change, whether it's good or bad, people don't like it. And there's going to be resistance. And with resistance come a lot of emotional turmoil. And you have to embed emotional agility in any of this work. Otherwise, there's going to be a lot of resistance. Okay, so of course, learn how agile work has nothing to do with your agility, right? That's more operational agility, actually. All right, so let's look at our top 5 here. Okay. Rosnita and Trick, they are also the 4th and the 5th. So the top 5 winners, can I check with Secretariat? Do you have their emails already? All of you are one of the first few to really embrace this agility at workplace. That's going to be what I would call a very important topic in the wake of technology advancement, in the wake of change, in the wake of uncertainty. being able to equip yourself is the first thing you can do to be VUCA proof, I call it. So on that note, I thank you for your participation. And we got a question actually from Mr. Harun. How does IR4 automation and AI impact the adoption of Agile in enterprise environment that operates in multi locations? So there are two parts to the question actually. The first part is the introduction of this technology like IR, 4, 5, automation, all of these technologies, these are change elements, right? The change elements, there are going to be disruptions. It is disruptive. Now, the question is, how do we handle these disruptions? So, we got to equip ourselves at all levels. So number one, embrace this change from an individual level, learning agility, emotional agility. On operational level, we have operational agility. And on the team level, we need to have team agility. And on the leadership level, to even understand, comprehend this, the top down perspective, they need to understand leadership agility, right? So that's definitely so relevant. And even more so, enterprises operating in multi locations. You'll have locations where people are not as agile as they should be, and they must slowly level up. If you have too much of disparity between locations, like one location is really agile, the other ones are not, you're going to have a problem, right? So leveling up must also happen over time, but it's a journey, right? As long as we have the destination, the journey can proceed.
Thank you, Dr. Sana.